It's Tuesday, December 4th, and welcome to Strictly Business.
Beautiful day, I'm feeling good. Gonna make some moves. No more sugar, no time to waste, got nothing to lose. Now it's time to move forward. All I can be. So glad to be free. 'Cause I know if I try, I ain't gonna stress. 'Cause I'm taking care of business. Strictly business.
Welcome back. So this week we're going to discuss a very important topic. It's regarding us with natural hair, to be natural or not be natural. So we're going to start with this study that was done. It's called the Good Hair Study, Explicit or Implicit Attitudes Towards Black Women's Hair. It was conducted by the Perception Institute. It explores how prevailing hair and beauty standards affect the perception of hairstyles worn by women of color. Across all demographics, the study suggests that the majority of people, regardless of race and gender, hold some bias towards women of color based on their hair, with white women in particular being the worst offenders. I want to pose the question in your thoughts. What has been your experience regarding this behavior? For me, I know, because we're very versatile. We wear different hairstyles. We're able to change it up the way we want. But an irritant for me is when I do change up my hairstyle and then someone comes up and touches my hair. Mm-hmm. Like, that is just like, right. Why? Like, I would never go up and say, oh, what's this, sir? Your hair, just, so that's just like a pet peeve of mine. And, in our culture, we just don't go touching people's hair.
Mm-hmm. One of my pet peeves is that your hair? Mm-hmm. Why does it matter? Right. Like, whether that's my hair or not, just either it's nice or it's not, or don't say nothing at all. Mm-hmm. I don't like that.
It's mine because I bought it. So
right.
It's mine.
Right. That is a pet peeve.
I think the touching and stuff just comes from an inquiry, like they want to know, how can you do hair like that? Why is it like that? And I find many of the Caucasian cultures are even starting to wear weaves and things like that, either for length or change in texture or getting faux locks, things like that, that most of us have known from the African American culture to do. Sometimes I think it's out of ignorance, but other times, more than likely, I think it's just because they want to know how can you be so versatile?
What do you think about it? You being judged because of your hair based on different job opportunities or interviews you come in, things like that, whether it be the style of hair, the color of hair. What are your thoughts on that?
Mine is your hair don't define you. Your hair didn't get you in the door. Your intelligence did.
Right.
Exactly. The way you speak did. How you carried yourself did. Your integrity. That's what got you in the door. Mm-hmm. So I know it was on the news that with the dreads, they wanted to stop having people wear dreads to work.
They wanted to ban it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a part of them. Right. What does that have to do with how they do stuff at work? Right. Yeah.
That perception and that image, I think, means a lot. In our spring season, we talked about unconscious bias. I think a lot of it is those unconscious, subtle things that cause people to sort of react. Because you're right, it shouldn't be determined, your work ethic, by your hair. Right. But a lot of it's underlying, like dreads may be considered dirty. Or if you wear your hair a certain way, it may be considered unnatural, unclean, unkempt. But those things shouldn't matter.
Right. I found that I've noticed not really too much of a difference when I go from my natural, like this is a sew-in, but when I wear my natural fro, some people, professionally and personally either like that more. A lot of people like this better. They're like, oh, you look younger, but when you wear your natural, it's cute, but you look a little bit older. And so it's amazing how we align who the person is with hair texture and the style of hair. I know in my interviews, I've interviewed both ways for positions or for other opportunities with my natural fro, curly, blown out, or sometimes, with the sew-in. So I found, though, that if depending on what space I'm in, if some women don't know me and know that I'm natural, I've gotten that like, oh, you haven't done the change yet. And I'm like, I big chopped my hair. I've grown it out. I went through the whole journey. But the assumption when some people that haven't met me see me with the sewing is that, you know, not that I'm not woke, but just like, oh, so you're not really on that woke journey. And it's like, yes, I am. Why does being woke have to be associated with me wearing my hair? I get the sewing because I want versatility, because I don't want to damage my hair in the winter. So I do one sewing a year. And so I notice in those spaces that some of the judgment can be from sisters that I don't really know or I'm first encountering. It'll be that question if I'm with a group and they're all natural, like, oh, so about your sewing, you know, like, you never went natural? And I'm like, I'm natural right now. Right. And I'm, you know, even if my hair underneath wasn't natural, I'm still a natural woman.
Exactly.
So
that means
I
no
think we
chemical
need to,
relaxer.
I think we need to be careful with the term too. Like, I say naturalista when you'll see me pop my picture up in the spring, but what I really mean is by hair texture, not to offend women to say that you're less than natural if you wear a wig, a weave, a sew-in. And I find that our culture does that when white women don't. When they get extensions and hair fillers, be it for weddings or for just to make their hair look fuller, that those questions from their, you know, peers are not the same as the judgments that happens with black women.
Right. I think a lot of it too is, you know, once black women started to embrace their natural hair, people were afraid that they were going to embrace their identity. And so that gives you kind of a sense of power. So if you know, conform to the standard that straight, sleek is what's going to get you in the door, when you walk in and you do have your natural hair, it says, okay, she's confident. So sometimes that can be like, okay, she is a little bit much because she really believes in who she is. A lot of my clients that work in, like, you know, corporate America, you know, they always talk about how, you know, if they do wear their hair and it's big, it's like too much. Like it's too much for, you know, corporate America. I guess it's too black for them. But when they wear it sleek and straight, they're less intimidating, which is kind of crazy. And then to piggyback off of you, I think it's not just the Caucasian race. I think black women can do us into, I get a lot of feedback off of YouTube. I have a more fine textured natural hair. So they'll say, oh, you're not natural. You got to relax because my hair is less kinky. But natural means no chemical relaxer. So there's, you know, there's a variety of textures of hair. So you have what's called 3A, which is a lesser curl. And then you go all the way up to a 4C, which is more kinky. So, you know, they always say, well, you got to have relaxer. You know, you put gel in your hair and it just wave up. But my hair it's still natural. It's just less kinkier than most women. But we get that. We get that from black women. And like you said, now the naturalista, the naturalist, and everybody that's going natural, if you're not natural, you're not official. Or
you're not woke.
Right, you're not woke, or, you know, you're a sellout, or, you know, you still relaxing your hair. And, you know, even the products, like people are so obsessed with natural products. And if you're not using one sort of product, then you're not really doing it properly.
Right. Like that got alcohol in it, so you really know you're still putting chemical in your hair. If you're really natural, then you shouldn't be putting that because it has alcohol.
Yeah, I made my own products. I do it myself. Yeah, all of that.
And I think we put a lot of that pressure on ourselves, you know. Even though the outside world also have their bias against us, we also put a lot of pressure on each other. It's like, okay, so you don't use that product, and that's not right. You're supposed to use this product when you have natural hair. And it's like, well, I like this product better. It works better for me. So just having those different, you know, conversations with people on what you should use for your hair, or you're not using it right, so you're not official. You know, you're not the official natural person because you're not using what I use.
And everybody's hair texture is different. Like I had a huge debate with another sister because she was trying to tell me I'm not a 4C. Like I lived with my hair since I was, how old? I'm like 44 years. I'm a 4C too. You're not a 4C because I'm a 4C because, and I'm like everyone, like, I know what my hair pattern is, and I also had that confirmed by a hair stylist. But, you know, aside from that, it's even if you are natural, there is the judgment of you don't know your hair texture. And so, you know, I think we like let each other live in our space that we want in terms of, being natural or not, whether we're a 3B, a 4C, or whatever, that may mean for a woman. We can educate ourselves, but we should not tell a woman they're wrong for, expressing themselves in a certain way with regards to their texture of hair.
I swear, I think I'm like a 4XYZ because this stuff underneath here is kinky. But, I just, listening to what you guys are saying too, I feel like it's so much underlying just that this topic right now amongst us being African American or Black in terms of how we deal with each other regarding hairstyles and things like that. Underneath that, there's just been a lot of division among us as a culture that even this topic of hair is so much deeper than that. And this extends many other topics, but there's just a lot of division among our culture, and hair, unfortunately, is something that continues to divide us.
And on that note, we'll be right back. Welcome back. We want to continue our discussion on the natural hair versus the relaxed hair. And we want to pose this question to Miss Franklin over here. So you made the big chop.
I did.
And we want to know, how has it been since you transitioned? Just the different comments, looks, like what has your experience been since you chopped it off?
Well, first, it was scary. Like, I'm the type of girl where it's like, oh, it's just hair. I'll cut it. It'll grow back. But this transition was big for me, so it was scary. Asanta right here did it. Thank you. She did an amazing job. I was telling her, like, oh, my God, I'm scared. Like, so scared. But the transition has been amazing. I really haven't been getting any looks. I've been getting like, oh, my God, it looks so good on you. It looks nice. It looks this. It looks that. And plus, I really haven't been anywhere yet to be like, get those looks. So the transition has been amazing. I love it. I feel free. I feel more confident. I feel like me. Yeah. Like, this is what I've been wanting for a while now, and that now that I did it, I really feel like, oh my God, this is me. This is who I am. So it's been good.
And you look beautiful.
Thank you, honeys.
I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Definitely a new glow and radiance about you. It's something about that, as you said, that has you step into another area of comfort, and you can definitely see it. So, it looks beautiful on you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. We love it, and we hope you do too. And the journey is not easy. So when we see sisters that take that journey as women, I think it's important for, us to say, hey, you look beautiful. I love how that looks. And who did it? Right. So, we can feel confident in doing it. That was a tough journey for me. I cried when I big chopped. And what meant the world to me is when I stepped out of the chair and outside, I happened to see someone that I knew, one of our sorority sisters, and I cried like a baby. A few days later, another sorority sister gave me my first big platinum earring. She was like, let's put some big earrings on, because I had somewhat of a different experience. I felt that I was ugly, like everything on my face, but I had struggled with colorism, and we've had discussions about internalized racism, which when we talk about the implicit bias for Black women, I think that internalized racism piece, the colorism, what you see on the media in terms of what's beautiful, you won't see this definition of beauty as often, which is a definition of beauty. And so when I went through my experience, I was like not used to that being my standard of beauty. And I love when I see sisters take that journey and when other sisters support them. It's important.
We talked about cutting our hair before. I'm just not at that point yet. I'm not brave enough
Let's
yet.
all do it again this summer.
Right.
Come on.
Please hold.
This is the thing, though. You can always put a wig on. So if you don't like it, because we're so versatile, you can throw a wig on and say, you know what, this wasn't for me. Let me let my hair grow out a little bit. But I challenge every woman to consider it, because you go through a journey in here about out here. And it's really about doing the work internally that brings something else externally out that everyone gets to witness, especially you. So I tell every woman, if you're able to do it, it's a leap of faith, go for it. And if you don't like it, throw that wig on. But I challenge you, give it a few days, even if you do it. And you'll get to a place where, because I wanted to run to a wig. I mean, I was just like, I am not doing it. And I had a big event that night. I went to a huge sorority event. So I threw on a halter top and some pants, and my husband was like, you are stunning. And it was a different type of you are stunning. It was like the wedding day, you are stunning. So, I mean, it gave me a little, I had to really look at myself. Nappily Ever After, if you watch that movie, you understand about the journey. So I think we should think about doing it. You can always wear wigs.
And I think a lot of it comes from being younger, too. It was always, you have to have long hair in order to be beautiful, and just always having that planted in your mind. Like, I know growing up, I didn't see, personally, a lot of people with natural hair. Although mine was natural until I was about 14 when I got my first relaxer. But I always had my hair braided, or it was just in its natural state. But we didn't get picked on as kids with our hair braided, but we didn't wear it out in curls either. So I never saw that growing up, people with their natural hair. It was either braided or it was, the straightening comb from the stove, getting your hair straightened or curled. So I didn't grow up seeing that. And if you did, then it was like you were considered poor and your parents couldn't do your hair, So that's why I think it's a lot difficult now growing up, considering the natural look, just all of those thoughts I had as a kid. When you did see someone with natural hair, it was like, oh my gosh, their parents aren't combing their hair. Just having that thought like, oh, they're not able to do it, they're poor, and things like that. So it's just the mindset, and just like now, our daughter has beautiful curly hair, but she wants it straightened a lot. And so we have to have those conversations about how beautiful you are, how nice your hair is. So she's now coming into, I can wear my hair any way I want to, So, Asanta gave her a nice big curly wig that was amazing. And she was just like, I can wear any style. It can be curly, it can be straight, and I'm still who I am, Being able to, plant that in her has been huge for me, because, it just wasn't a conversation growing up. It wasn't a conversation about how your hair should be. Where now it's like a huge thing, where it's like it's either straight or you see, especially with social media and YouTube, and the kids are on there all the time watching these people, and they're like, Mommy, I want my hair like this person. But now she's able to see more natural styles with girls with YouTube stations, and it's like, oh, her hair's curly like mine.
I think it forms a sense of community too, because so y'all know underneath this I have sister locks, so hope y'all been paying attention to that. But Asanta done worked her magic and was able to create something. But there's a sister lock community. There's a dreadlock community. There is when you decide to do a big chop community. And we need those things as an outlet. We can see different styles, how people are rocking things. But community is big within our culture too. So when we can have those community and be able to talk about those different things, and I think that's huge and that's important. So it seems like Talia, my goddaughter, is finding a community in those YouTube channels that she watched to see, oh, Mommy, I can really rock it like this, or I can really do it like that.
And we didn't have that back then. So generation-wise, I'm probably the oldest here, I think. So our standard wasn't really the straightened hair. We had I went from braids to press and curl, but I had the Angela Davis. I could see the Black Panthers march and the Soul Train. What I do remember though, growing up watching Soul Train, I always paid attention to not just the sisters and how beautiful they were, but the Asian girl with the long hair. So my sister and I would get a towel or a shirt, and pretend our hair was that long. And then I went from being a natural girl to my mother then doing the press and curl to then getting a jerry curl, which was very popular in the 80s. And so it's like the standard changed in the 80s as you saw the Black Panther pull back more and Angela Davis go more into teaching, because I wanted the Angela. I was like, she got a fro. My mother had a fro. And, you know, so that was my standard looking at growing up to. So it wasn't until the 90s when all of the, you know, the R&B and hip hop genres, because even when you think about Jackie Brown, when you think about, you know, Pam Grier. Pam Grier. I mean, she was bona fide bad, and she didn't have no relaxer. She had it, and I was like, wow, she's gorgeous. So I think it depends on what generation you grew up in, and also what conversations are happening. So, you know, my daughter was growing up in this generation, but she prides on herself on having a head full of natural hair that she can wear a wig, get a sew-in, but she loves her natural hair. She will not consider a relaxer. And again, the technology, I think, helps with that, because there's online groups. And growing up, if you didn't have those kitchen table conversations with your big mama or your TT or your auntie, you went by what you saw. And so it's interesting how it's changed, because I'm a 70s, 80s baby, Generation X. But then once you go into, you know, later 80s, 90s, when I look at videos, I'm like, yeah, light skin, long hair. Dark skin, long hair, brown skin, long hair, straight. You won't see people in, you know, you don't see women in afros with 90s videos when the hip hop and R&B music started changing. Yeah. You do now. Now we're seeing it change in, you know, this era of 2000s.
I have clients now that that had adopted biracial kids or just black kids, and I'm starting to see how hard it is for their daughters to kind of identify with somebody. And a lot of them are, I don't know if they feel like they're kind of giving up their authority when they come to a black woman and ask for advice. But, you know, I sit there and I do their hair and I ask them questions. It's just kind of heartbreaking to hear the little girls like, you know, I don't like my hair. I just, you know, kind of wear it like this, because they don't really know. And I wish they were more open to education about the child's hair, and, you know, because it affects their self-esteem. Yeah. So it's been really hard. I have a couple just trying to find that common ground to be able to talk to her, but not overstep her mother's boundaries and her authority. But they need to know. They need to know, because they don't have somebody to identify like we did growing up. So that's been really challenging.
Sounds like some educational classes in the future for these ladies that you're going to have. Yeah.
So we just want to encourage you all to love who you are and embrace who you are and be confident in that, because you are who you are.
And God only made one you. And when he made you, he made all the hair on your head. So just embrace it and enjoy it, because it's only one texture of you when God made you.
And every shade of beauty. I have to put that out there, because we have a whole situation with hair and colorism. So, you know, you're beautiful in any shade, no matter what your hair is. That's the beauty of being a woman in terms of a woman of color.
We'll be back.
Welcome back to Strictly Health with myself, Dr. Yvette Conyers, nurse practitioner. So I want to take a minute and get the expertise off of me for this segment and really focus on Asanta Conyers of Be Renewed LLC, who is a part of our League of Professional Women show. So Asanta, one of the things I struggle with is alopecia, hair loss. I know there are many different reasons for hair loss: pregnancy, weight loss or weight gain, chemotherapy, stress. A whole bunch of other reasons. Can you sort of explain the process behind that, or what sort of occurs with alopecia?
I first want to say that, you know, a lot of people hear alopecia and they just, like, it's a disease. Alopecia just simply means hair loss. It's the medical term for hair loss, or any form of hair loss. And it's like you said, you deal with hair loss through hormonal changes in your body. A lot of people that I found newly are dealing with gluten allergies. So they're allergic to, those kind of things. So a lot of gluten-free products are now on the market for those women. And what I've newly found is this big case of endometriosis, fibroids, and any kind of cyst, anything that's cystic. Women are losing their hair very rapidly, even gastric bypass surgery. It has a really big effect on your hair. And even your pain levels, because your pain level changes your cortisol levels. So people that are constantly taking ibuprofen, constantly taking naproxen, those things will cause hair loss. So
certain medications, and then with gastric bypass, obviously there's nutritional deficiencies in there, so that can lead to hair loss as well. What can people do for hair loss or to try to strengthen their hair, especially women of color?
So, it really varies in the degree of your hair loss. If you're dealing with hormonal things, or even if it's genetic, which is androgenic alopecia, there's even, it's this procedure called PRP. You're a good candidate for PRP treatments if your hair loss is severe. So if you have a really big patch of hair and then everything else is growing, but you have a big diameter of loss, PRP treatments is when you take your own plasma-rich platelets and then you inject it back into your scalp. As a trichologist, I'm not certified to do that. So you would have to see a dermatologist to do that. As a trichologist and hair loss practitioner, we're able to scope. We're not able to physically diagnose, but we're able to treat. So holistically, how I treat my clients is whole body. So your mind, how you perceive your hair loss. Because a lot of women are stressed. They look at their hair and they're just like, I'm ugly. I can't get past it. So you have to deal with the mind first. And then, there's essential oils. I have a scope where I can actually see the scalp magnified at 500 magnification. So I can kind of see if your scalp is inflamed, if it's raised, if there's fungus, if you have live actual follicles, and if they're dead. There's vitamins that you can take. If it's genetic, a lot of it is permanent too. Sometimes it's just knowing that there's nothing else I can do. So then I put those kind of clients into units. And it kind of relieves the stress that, okay, this is not coming back, but at least I can feel good, I can look good. And usually it's something that looks like their natural hair.
Is hair unit a weave?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, or a wig.
A wig.
A
okay.
wig.
Okay.
Mainly a wig.
Okay.
So I would say the biggest, they have so many multivitamins out on the market right now. L-tyrosine is a very good multivitamin or vitamin supplement to take. It's not a multivitamin to take. And a lot of natural things, because the body was really made to heal itself. So if you can pinpoint what your problem is, if it's hormonal, if it's genetic, if it's bacteria, if it's some kind of allergic something. There's even people that are losing their hair. It's called trichomania. When you pull your hair, that's a mental behavior. So pinpointing why, it's usually in children, while they're pulling their hair, it's like a soothing factor, like a pacifier. It pacifies them. So you treat that differently than you would a gluten allergy.
I was going to ask you a question about that because a lot of women are embarrassed by that, especially when they're getting their hair done. So for me, part of my journey, when my big chop started, I had this thing that we knew was from relaxer, but it was also my pinpoint of pulling because of anxiety. And so I had this, she just came out and asked me, she was like, you're a puller, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. And she gave me this, so I was in this group, this trichotillomania group, where it's all types of people. I mean, it's men, it's women, it's everything from not just the hair here, but eyelashes. And so I had to really, the reason she had to go so low on my big chop was because of how big the gap was. Some of it was from bad relaxers, but there was something that she noticed. Like she was like, yeah, you've got patches. And I'm like, yep, I have certain areas. And so, my husband would always like pull my hand down. And then, but I had to treat the anxiety and the depression and figure out what that was. But no one ever gave me a name for it until she did. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I think it's bigger. I can recognize that in women, especially in Black women, because of stress and anxiety. And a lot of people think, that's why I don't like the edges jokes, because a lot of women struggle with edges, not just because of, hormone, medical or things like that, but some of them struggle with edges because they pull there. and they may not have a name for it. They just know you pull and it feels good. It's almost like a cutter. And I've worked with, in terms of counseling, I've worked with cutters, and a girl that I cut, the symptoms that she would describe in terms of what she was feeling, what she would feel would be similar to what I would feel when I would pull that strand of hair or strand. I mean, mine, some days I would get, when I was going through my worst anxiety years ago, it would be like gaps. And I would see it in the bed and just cry, like, what is this? And so treating the symptom and telling women that, I think, is so important, because had that stylist not told me that, I would have just thought it was just some, you know, like people who suck their thumbs, like people who, you know what I mean? It was just one other thing that I do, not knowing that there was a name attached to it. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's a huge one for Black women. And when I start sharing that, I've had Black women say, oh my God, I've done that, but I don't only do just my hair here, I do hair here. I mean, it's just, you know, so again, going back to the mental health piece and anxiety being rampant, being attached to the growth process and the health of your hair, and how that's all connected.
One thing you mentioned too, I'm just going to swing back around, is the pulling. So something we didn't mention, which is common in our community, is traction alopecia, right? So the pulling and things. And I believe that's how sort of mine started out, wearing, you know, tight ponytails, microwave ponytails, you name it. You know, back in the day, I had it. You know, so what can people do to help with the traction alopecia?
So traction is like the number one hair loss issue with African American women. With the pulling, you can even get traction from taking your glasses on and off. You can get traction alopecia from wearing wigs and they're too tight, and you know, you just, you know, always shifting. And we wear scarves to that. So a lot of times, you know, we're missing hair where we'll tie the knot really, really tight on the back. The best way to avoid traction alopecia is to stop the traction. Like, you have to stop for a while the traction and the rubbing and the pulling and the abrasiveness of it. And it's not permanent, so it can grow back. I tell a lot of people too, you have to get something that's going to penetrate into the scalp and just treat the area and, you know, kind of rub it in there and allow it to grow. A lot of women with the traction, they'll still put the glue, you know, they'll still get braids, and you can't treat it and then still be pulling on it. It's impossible.
Well, thank you for joining us on our edition of Strictly Health, but more a focus on hair. And we'll see you next time.
Hi, we're excited to present to you an interview with Dr. Gillian Scott-Ward as she discusses more on the topic of natural hair in the workplace.
Hi, my name is Dr. Gillian Scott-Ward, and I'm a clinical psychologist in Manhattan, New York, and the director of the award-winning documentary Back to Natural. Back to Natural is really an empowering story that looks at the history that Black people have with their hair and the global fight for equality. I travel around the US, South Africa, and France, and I collect these amazing, intimate, empowering, sometimes painful stories, but really inspiring stories about how, despite all the odds, we continue to fight for our freedoms and for our right to live in our bodies authentically in whatever way that means for people. You know, I think people are usually pretty stunned when they see the movie, because I really lay out the history and the psychology of Black people's relationship with hair. You know, hair historically has signified every aspect of our identity. It would tell our community members who we were, our status, our role in society, and through global colonization, that relationship really changed. And a part of what I'd like to get across with the movie is how reconnecting with that relationship to our hair is actually really empowering and good for everyone. there's a lot of things that I wish people would know, and particularly as we discuss our hair within a work environment, there are some things that I want people to understand. And that's the impact of these grooming standards that are European normed and that are difficult for some of us based on our hair texture to meet. People of color, Black people, spend 9 times as much money on hair products than white people. And the reason for that is because we are attempting to meet these standards, which for many of us are really unnatural. Black people look all different ways. We have all different skin colors. We have all different hair types. But for some of us, particularly I have really kinky hair. I'm more of a 4C. For me to meet some of the grooming standards that these organizations have would require a lot. So we're spending more money trying to meet these grooming standards, and also we're exposed to many more chemicals because we're attempting to meet these grooming standards. So what they're finding is that there's certain types of chemicals, endocrine related chemicals, that disrupting chemicals that are related to reproductive issues, early periods. Some have been related to cancers, to hair loss, and are really agitating to the scalp. So not only are we told that who we are don't meet these standards, but an attempt to meet these standards, there are serious health implications. So that's something that I wish employers also knew. The other thing that I wish employers knew was that it actually benefits the organization to allow people to come to work in a way that feels natural to them. So what the research showed, I recently read a meta-analysis. So that means that they look at a large number of studies that looked at this topic and then put together that information to understand the issue in sort of a larger context. And what they found was that when people feel discriminated against at work, right? So if people are asked to meet standards that the employee is interpreting as racist, so the employer may not have an intention to be discriminatory, but if the employee reads those standards as discriminatory, there are real impacts on their functioning and their ability to contribute to that work environment. So if a person feels discriminated against at work, they're going to be less engaged at work. They're going to feel less supported. So they're going to, potentially and unconsciously maybe put in less effort. And it's going to impact their self-esteem. It's going to impact their health, So I already spoke about the health impact of these chemicals that a lot of people are using. And so if they're on your health insurance and they're exposed to all these chemicals, that's not helping the employer, right? Feeling discriminated against at work has, people have more symptoms of things like headaches, and maybe will miss more work. So it actually benefits the employer to help all their employees feel supported and seen, and then they're going to give more work. So I think that there's research that shows it benefits the employer to let the employee come to work as they are and participate as their whole self instead of having to hide parts of themselves. And so that's one thing that I would hope that employers would really learn and understand. So I think the movie really creates dialogue, and amazing dialogue within families, within organizations. And so I encourage people to see the movie. Right now we're on tour. So if you have a school or an organization or a club and you'd like to host a screening, reach out to us. Our website is www.backtonatural.com, and we could schedule a screening. And I also do workshops. So I do workshops that help people get in touch with their relationship to themselves and their hair, self-esteem. We explore early messages that people got in their childhood to really help heal some of that historical and familial trauma that's related to our hair. We all have hair stories that some of us need to process. And I also go to companies that have had issues of discrimination in the past and show the movie and do a workshop to kind of explain the hidden history about our relationship to our hair and how it benefits organizations to be more inclusive. So definitely join our mailing list, go to our website, learn more about us, and bring us into your communities. Right now we are on tour, and we're also looking for distribution. So we also invite inquiries about that as well. Join our Facebook page at Back to Natural Doc, our Instagram at Back to Natural Doc, and our Twitter. And our Twitter is the only one that's different. Instead of Back to TO Natural Doc, our Twitter is Back to the Number. So please reach out. I would love to interact with you all, and have a great day.
Many people in the African American community have taken to Twitter to insult Gabby Douglas's hair.
And people are literally tweeting about her pulled back ponytail.
Wore a wig to work every day because he was not allowed to wear dreadlocks.
You do what you can to try to fit in.
That style is stuck in the 60s, anti-establishment look, and it scares people.
If Michelle Obama had natural hair.
And that is why black hair is political.
When I was maybe like 10, we started like getting perms. That was the goal, was to get the hair that could swing.
Like literally my first memory is, I think I was 7 and I just was bald.
The late 1990s, you had black women stopping with the relaxers, but it wasn't called any kind of movement because they were doing it in isolation. 2005, when YouTube was invented, revolution broke out.
Clients come to us. We're in France, right? Je voudrais un tapered cut. The reference now are through YouTube and the YouTubers. It's all throughout the world.
Having locks freed me, kids, and a lot of my early socialization came with white kids. So I remember the attractive girls always being the white girls.
At one point, there was a lot of discussion in my family about whether or not I should straighten my hair so that I would attract more men.
When I dreamt about having children, I wanted to be sure that she would grow in a world where she wouldn't have to fight like we for our hair, for our identity.
I wish my parents had said that I had beautiful hair.
Black people and all people, but black people in particular, not only have a right to be authentic, it is a requirement.
Thank you for joining us this week. We hope that you all understand how beautiful you are, regardless of your hair. Your hair doesn't define who you are. And we hope you come and join us back here next week. Bye.
And remember that we are beautiful with
That color look good on you, guys. Wait, it's not a pet. No.